Be boundless.
Hi everyone, welcome to yet another episode of Be Boundless. Today you have to be focused because this is going to be a very, very important quality that I'm going to be talking about. This quality is a quality that's going to be making you extremely successful both at workplace as well as in your personal life. And it's extremely important to practice this quality throughout your life. And that quality, my friends, is respect. So today I have with me Shantanu, and we're going to be chatting about respect. Hey Shantanu, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm awesome, as usual.
Yeah, as usual. So why respect though? Why is that the topic we're discussing today? And why is it so important?
Why is respect important? So I'm going to talk about the various manifestations of respect first, so that people understand why I'm talking about respect. Because I'm covering respect as a much broader umbrella than just respecting our elders and things like that. Respect in its purest form has many manifestations. Number one is inclusivity. Inclusivity is the respect for differences. So if you respect people for their differences, then you are an inclusive person. Another one is empathy. If you respect somebody else's difficulties and sufferings, then you have empathy. Justice and fair play is the respect for the other person's rights. So you will feel that the other person has equal rights to you, and then you will respect that. Then you will automatically become a person with a sense of justice. At work, for example, punctuality, in my opinion, is a respect. It's respect for the other person's time. Similarly, adherence to the law is a respect for the society at large. Because those who adhere to the law know that laws have been put down so that the society can be protected, so that every individual's rights can be protected. And hence, you will adhere to the law. Those who do not are basically disrespecting every other person in the society. So respect has so many manifestations. Right. Including, for example, quality in a product which a company brings out is actually a show of respect to the customers who actually use the product. You respect the fact that they're going to be using it, and you want to give the best product to the customer. Hence, you make a quality product. At workplace, punctuality, timeliness, adherence to processes, they're all respect for the people who are working with you, collaborating with you on any project. Because then you would ensure that you keep to the timelines, you give quality output to the next person who will be using your output as their input. So it's every aspect of this is respect. Similarly, that I talked about workplace, etc. In personal life, those who show respect to each other are likely to have far better relationships, etc. So in every walk of life,
course,
in my opinion, respect is very important.
Yeah, of course. And like you said, the fact that respect is such a multifaceted concept, like you said, it attaches to your attitude towards society, towards justice, all of those different things. It's something that's told to us, at least in verbal form, at least as some sort of face value. They teach kids, respect your elders, respect someone else, respect those around you. And it's inculcated into us from an early age, but it is very easy to forget that. It's very easy to take something for granted and not continue to pay respect, even if you may have started or intended to do that. A lot of our audience is, they're working professionals. So in the workplace specifically, how important is respect, and how do you bring that out?
So for the individual professional, I would say that respect is one of the topmost qualities that you need to have. It is so important that a company like Google, for example, one of the traits that they ask every individual to show, and people are rated on that at the end of every year, is respect. Why is it important? Because people who respect each other are far easier to get along with and collaborate with, rather than people who are snobbish or standoffish or arrogant and put others down, right? So to have a collaborative environment in the organization, you need respect. The second thing why professionals should have respect is that a professional who manifests respect all the time, they look at every individual for their strengths and they respect them for their strengths, and hence they're able to get the best out of every individual who they work with. So if you're a team leader of, let's say, even 5 people, or you're a CEO of a 5,000 people organization, it is the way you respect people and understand their individuality and then draw out the best in them that will make your team a success, whether it's a 5-member team or a 5,000-member team. So yeah, that's why respect, in my opinion, is very important for professionals to cultivate.
And it's also so important to earn that respect as opposed to sort of just being given it. It's easy for us to sort of look at an authority figure and say, I'm going to give this person my respect. He is my superior, my boss, or he has more experience. And those are all noteworthy things that perhaps you should give some amount of respect for, but maybe in the same way that I wouldn't automatically give, an elder respect just because they're my elder. Maybe that is something to be considered.
In fact, that's a very important point you brought up. The one adage that I always use is that respect cannot be demanded. It needs to be earned. And respect doesn't come with the size of your cabin, the position you hold, the size of your car or the house or your house or your pay packet. Respect comes when you earn respect, and a very fundamental quality input to earning respect is giving respect. So I'll give you a couple of examples. From my own life, there was a very interesting example of very early in my career. I was in a computer company and I was a sales manager, and there were several sales managers who were all handling different parts of the product offerings. And we all had to get our monthly revenue in. We all had our own targets. And the way to get the revenue in is to get orders from our distributors. And the orders then has to go to order processing team who enters it into the computer. And once the order is logged in, then that is counted against our target. Now, all these managers were well paid, qualified employees, etc. And the order processing team was not part of the organization, but they were outsourced contract employees. Now, that team was usually looked down upon by most of the other managers. They would not spend too much of time with them. They would actually just demand things from them without actually building relationships with them. That is something which I could not ever do. I was a person who, having been brought up in a very rural village background, having a friend who was best friend to a bus driver's son, etc. For me, class didn't matter at all. So I would actually spend as much time with the order processing team or members of the team as I would with the managers. And I had great relationships with them. Now, it turned out that this was a huge advantage for me, because every month end, when orders would come pouring in for all the managers, it would always be my orders which would get entered into the system first, because I had this respect for these people. And they respected me back because of that. So I would always do my target without any problem, whereas some of the other managers had to struggle for it. So that's when I realized that this single act of giving respect gets back so much of respect. Similarly, one of the other companies I worked in was Titan, and I remember the MD of the company was Bhaskar Bhatt. He was a wonderful person who used to also respect every individual in the organization. I would see him walking around in the office sometimes, going and sitting with an employee who is maybe 7, 8, 9 levels below him. And he would have a chat. He would ask about their family, how they are doing at work, what's happening at work, any challenges they have. He was such an easy person to get along with because he would respect everybody. And because of this, Titan has a culture of incredible respect within the organization. And all that is thanks to the respect which was inculcated by Bhaskar, and it was percolating down. So leaders, especially topmost leaders, need to always role model respect.
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense, especially in a workplace. It just helps with the efficiency of everything. If everyone is able to collaborate, give each other a mutual respect, then of course the company works better. I have found in my experience that there are certain instances where you do still have to prove yourself. Like you said, respect isn't demanded, it's earned. And especially when you're starting off at a lower level, sometimes you need to make sure that you're able to just put the work in, put in the hours, because that'll also bring up the rest of the people around you. If there's a person on your team that you're working with that is not so enthusiastic, or there is a superior who's not too thrilled about you joining their team, or any unfortunate situation on similar lines, if you're able to prove yourself, then you're earning their respect, and they will also feel more inclined to put in that work, put in that effort, that time.
Of course, competency is a very important aspect of gaining respect. So the hard work is respected by anybody and everybody. Adding that, so in a situation where you are the frontline employee or a subordinate, showcasing your abilities is critical. But as you go up the ladder and you become a leader, not only do you have to showcase that you are very good at your work, but you also have to respect other individuals in the organization for you to get respect back. So I have an example. For example, there's a gentleman I know who started a company, and successful startup company, because he had a very innovative idea. And the innovative idea actually carried the company through for quite some time. But unfortunately, he, as a CEO, he would scream and shout at people, and he would treat them with utter disrespect in front of others, etc. Every year, about 30 to 35% of the employees would attrite. They would leave the organization because they didn't want to put up with disrespect. So, and even out of the balance 65% who would stay back, half of them would be actually wanting to destroy the company while sitting in the company. Imagine, how can you build a successful organization like that? And that's one of the reasons that company is actually floundering right now, and it's got into a lot of problems. Yeah. So yes, respect is important. Yeah. So competency alone is not important at a CEO level. He is very good at his own creativity, etc. But unless you respect people, your team will not carry it through.
For sure. I, as an individual, would feel far more inclined to do more, work harder, if my superior was able to give me the due respect that any human being deserves. And, since we're on the line of superiors and giving them respect, have you ever found that you can give too much respect to not any particular leader, let's say, but just to authority overall? Is it possible for you to have so much adulation, so much, admiration even for someone, that you are a little blindsided when maybe they are taking advantage of you, overworking you or not giving you your due diligence because the respect isn't going? So
I will actually talk about both instances where you respect a subordinate too much or you respect a superior too much in an organization setting. What typically happens is that there are some people who have so much of empathy for their subordinates that they forget that every person is supposed to deliver on their goals. And they start overlooking shortfalls and they are not able to actually put their foot down with their subordinates. Now, that is not honestly being respectful, in my opinion. A respectful person would actually have no problem calling out that you are falling short and sitting with the subordinate and trying to ensure that they are enabled to achieve their goals. And finally, if that doesn't work, an honest and frank conversation where you say that, hey, this job requires abilities which you do not seem to have, and hence it's better that we part ways. That is important. And I've had to do that with multiple people in my career. And I believe that is the very respectful way of ensuring that that person can then look for opportunities which they are better suited for. So it's actually, in a way, what is perceived as too much of respect is actually lack of respect. Similarly, boss-subordinate relationship. There is a lot of time when bosses who have charisma, they get sort of, they have a leadership of cult, you can say. So they have cult followers, and then what happens is people blindly follow them without understanding that there are instances where the boss may be going wrong. And it's important that subordinates have the ability to actually call out those issues. So the one thing that I say, and why respect is important, and the way the respect should be showcased, is that it should build trust in an organization. In an organization where there's absolute trust between levels, between people, collaboration becomes far easier, number one. Number two, people have no problem in actually speaking the truth. They will call a spade. If they see something wrong, they have no problem articulating it clearly without hurting the other person's sentiments, but clearly articulating that there is a shortfall. Especially when subordinates can do that to a boss, then the organization culture will become far more powerful, because that means there is no blind side in the organization. You're always aware of your shortfalls, and you're constantly then trying for perfection.
Yeah. Something you said actually really struck a chord with me, which when I first started teaching, the biggest struggle I had was I could not yell at a child. It was completely, I was not able to do it at all. I don't really look at myself as an angry person, though I know there are people that might disagree. But I don't think I'm a very, I'm not quick to anger, let's say, or at least not yelling. But I've seen instances where a child has been misbehaving, and at that moment, I should have said something, at least because that child who is still growing up, still trying to understand what their values are supposed to be, they need that at that moment to be told, that is not correct, or that's not something you should be doing. And I remember a particular instance where I finally had this little click go off in my head where there was this one child who was extremely active, very good at drama and communication skills, a gregarious sort. And he, as a result of that, was also a little overconfident. Would often be running around during the class, not paying attention, running up to other kids, messing with their projects. And I had another kid who was much more quiet, much more reserved, very sweet little boy, who had spent, I think, weeks working on this large diagram about his favorite movie, which the task was he was going to talk about that movie. And this other child ran up and completely destroyed his diagram. And I immediately clicked, and I yelled at this kid, and I was like, you can't do that. That he's worked hard on this, and I will not tolerate it. And ever since then, I realized that he changed, because while, yes, I also maybe, he didn't expect it to come out, especially from me, he also realized that, I've hurt this other person. And, there's something to be said that even in the workplace, if your superior is able to tell you straightforwardly that, this is not good work, or this can definitely be better, or you're showing up late way too often, you're on, thin ice now. That is also course correction for you. And everyone needs course correction.
Exactly. And that is actually showing respect to the person, and in not giving that feedback is going to make that person carry on with that kind of a behavior. And then finally, they will be heading for a disaster. So this kid that you corrected, I think he will have a much better life ahead of him because you did that act. So you're actually respecting his life by actually doing this.
Yeah. It took me a long time to understand that, because, I realized that, I'm not just here to be their friend. I am their teacher, or let's say the analogy being their superior, although I really don't like to say that about teachers and students. But, if you're in charge of educating, leading, putting them in the right direction, then sometimes you have to maybe give a little bit of tough love, or at least some instruction, because you're not just there to appease them, make
True.
them happy all the time. But moving on a little bit from the workplace, what about respect in a more personal setting? How does it affect your relationships, your personal life?
You'll find that couples who stay together happily and live very long are those who respect each other. There are so many couples where where they're highly educated, coming from great background. Unfortunately, they don't respect each individual's individuality, and they want the other person to conform to their way of living. And it just completely spirals down into conflict and unhappiness, stress, and it finally affects health. And so it's a very bad trip, right? So respect is so important in situations like that. I can give you a couple of examples from my own life. My wife and I are very different people. I do not get stressed easily. Setbacks, etc., do not faze me too much. On the other hand, she's somebody who worries a lot. She worries about the smallest things, something could go wrong all the time, etc. And I used to look down upon it for some time in the early stages of a marriage. I used to think, hey, this is so, why can't you just pull yourself up? Why can't you just stop worrying and keep your mind occupied with something else, etc. And later on, I realized, once I started my research into positive psychology and psychology itself, I realized that she had lost her mother when she was very young, when she was about 13 or 15 or something. And losing somebody who's the largest figure in your life at such an early stage will completely change your personality. It can make you a far more stressy kind of a person. And I have to support her through this rather than thinking that she's in some way inferior to me because of that. So today, I completely accept her as what she is, give her so much of respect for every strength that she brings in, and that makes our marriage far better. And she does exactly the same to me, because I have so many issues, so many weaknesses, and she accepts me exactly as the way I am. My father-in-law is another person who's been staying with us for about 20 years. He's diametrically opposite to me in terms of his ideologies, the way he's very religious. I'm almost an atheist. But we get along famously because both of us give each other space. We respect each other for what we are, focus on the strengths, and life is amazing. So I think I'm the happiest person I have met in my life, only because I respect every person's individuality and treat them as a perfect creation of God with certain strengths and certain developmental areas, just like I have, and hence all of us are equal.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in intelligent discussion over anything and everything is part of progress, not just in a relationship, even civilization. I think being able to discuss something in big groups and then being able to implement those talking points into actuality is an extremely important thing. And without respect, there's no way to do that. There's no way to have that discussion, because if you've already decided that you are correct and that there is no other way to go about life, or there is no other path to walk, then, well, first of all, you're probably going to find that you have fewer roads to walk down. You've limited yourself already by saying this is all I need to know and I don't need to know anything else. And you'll probably push a few people away, because at the end of the day, everyone is going to have conflict with each other at some point. I've never met two people that never have an argument. So at some point, you're going to come into conflict with someone. And if you don't respect that person, you're not going to be able to move past it without a little bit of resentment or holding on to, no, but secretly, I think I'm right about this.
Sorry, and that brings me to another manifestation, which I listed out in the beginning. Active listening is a very important aspect of respect. So you are respecting the person by giving the person an opportunity to state their viewpoint. So you're listening and then trying to assimilate what the person is saying, rather than trying to as you said, no, push your own agenda in a discussion.
Yeah. I mean, I've tried to correct myself plenty of times where someone is talking, but I'm so ready to get out my next point that I'm almost ignoring what they're saying because I'm like, no, but you're not listening to me, but really I'm just not listening to them. And I guess you have to catch yourself when you're doing that, because again, you have to remind yourself to be respectful, I think. Yeah. So I do have a question though, which is, did you ever feel disrespected, either in the workplace or in your personal life? Is there ever a moment where you've had someone disrespect you, or you felt almost the need to disrespect someone else, and how did you react to that situation?
Very luckily, in the early part of my career, I never had that because I was as I said, in Titan, and then further than that, I had good bosses and people who are great co-workers. One of the places where I was a consultant where I had felt disrespected was, as a consultant, I also brought in some great people into the organization who I had worked with earlier and who I felt were extremely good people. Now, on my word, they came and joined the organization. At the end of the first year, I realized that even though they had actually done a reasonably good job, because their approach was very different from that of the CEO wanted to sack them, and CEO actually sacked them. He did not even consult me or inform me. He didn't have to maybe consult me, but at least he could have informed me that he was doing that, because on my personal credibility, I had brought in these people. So I felt extremely disrespected at that point in time. And I left that organization. I left working for that organization. Disrespect leads to people leaving the organization. So it's very important to remember that.
Yeah. Would you change anything now, looking back?
No, I think at the end of the day, these are lessons that you learn in life. Only when you go through it, you learn it. So I take it as a learning experience and move on.
Right. Okay. And so now the question is, like we said, you have to teach yourself almost, or remind yourself at least, to continuously be respectful. How do you train yourself?
Like anything else, respect also can be trained into the brain. Respect is something which has a lot to do with your upbringing. So from very early age onwards. So it's sort of strongly encoded in your brain already, whether you are respectful or lacking in respect. It is a lot more difficult to inculcate respect in somebody who doesn't have respect, as opposed to many of the other qualities. However, it can be done. And it all starts with introspection. First, you need to introspect yourself, whether you are doing the right thing or not. And how do you do that? Look at all the relationships that you have, with people who you interact reasonably regularly, whether it's your relations, your family, your professional colleagues, your partners at work, whatever, right? And then try and figure out which of these relationships do you show lack of respect in? Do you treat the other person as an equal who have their own abilities and their own set of abilities and strengths? Do you look at their strengths, or do you always look at their weaknesses? Do you prejudge them because of either their age or their qualification or their background or their caste, religion? If you are doing any of that, then you need to tell yourself that the other person is as good as you in their own way, and hence you need to look at their strengths. Then consciously try and list down the strengths of those people who you think you disrespect, and try and focus on that on a continuous basis. On a daily basis, every interaction, try to give the other person an equal level as you when you interact with them. Whether it's allowing them to speak their mind, then listening to what they say and analyzing it, and then assimilating it, rather than putting it down because it's coming from somebody you do not respect enough. So these are the things that you can do to inculcate respect in yourself.
Great. I mean, those are all very valuable lessons. I'll be sure to give some of those a go. if not all. And I guess I do have one last question that I just a little bit quickly popped into my head, which is, do you feel like as you're pushing, respect out into the world, as you're giving respect to other people, do you feel your own self-respect start to grow? Because at least I've found that if I'm looking at a person and I know there's an equality there, there's a relationship that's on the same level, I'm not looking up at them, they're not looking down at me, or vice versa, then I feel a little bit more good about myself. I feel more secure in not just my relationship, in the place that I'm in at that moment.
What happens when you respect as many people as you meet or you interact with is that you're actually taking that person as an individual who have their own abilities and strengths, as I keep saying, and hence you are treating them as an equal. Now, the same thing applies when you meet somebody else who is maybe your boss or somebody who is a celebrity or any of those. And then you don't have a diffidence in yourself, because you also know that you also have your own strengths and your abilities. Right. And you are equal to the other person in some way, in every way actually, because you are all unique people. So today, for example, and that's great point that you brought in. If I interact with somebody who's a billionaire, who's an extremely successful person who has created a great company or whatever, or even a celebrity who's got millions of followers, I do not in any way feel inferior to that person. I feel that that person is great. I'm also great in my own way, and hence we are equals.
Okay, great. Any last words for our audience about respect?
So last words for the audience is keep internalizing what I said today, because of all the qualities that we will be talking about in Be Boundless series, respect is, in my opinion, one of the foundational ones. And to inculcate respect in yourself, if you do not have a respectful mindset already, you will have to work really hard to do that. But that's ultimately what's going to make you successful. So that's it from my side. See you in the next episode.
If you like what you heard, subscribe and keep up to date with the Be Boundless podcast.